Hi, HRN listeners. We're celebrating our 15th anniversary, and we have a really fun campaign and an ask for you. This 15th anniversary tour is aiming to bring you closer to unique food and music experiences in some of the most exciting cities in America. All the while, we're raising funds to support our work empowering the next generation of food systems storytellers through our fellowship programs. Here's how it works. Donate to HRN and be entered into a raffle in the city of your choice to win a dinner for two at a noteworthy restaurant and tickets for two to a concert at a prominent local venue. We have incredible partners in New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Nashville, Las Vegas, Charleston, Asheville, and Ardmore, Pennsylvania, who have donated a meal for two and two tickets to a concert of the winner's choice. And all donations help fund our fellowship programs, where we're helping to build essential workforce readiness skills and food system storytelling skills. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Thank you.
Hearst Ranch is a proud sponsor of the Heritage Radio Network. Learn more about Hearst Ranch at HearstRanch.com.
My name is Hannah Forden. I'm the membership coordinator at Heritage Radio Network, but even before I joined the team, I loved listening to HRN during my subway commute. It made the time go quickly and left me feeling inspired for the day ahead. HRN listeners tune in from all over the world, but there are a few traits that we all have in common, no matter where we listen from. A curious palate, the fierceness to make a difference, and a hunger for lifelong learning about the culinary world. As you know, Heritage Radio Network is a listener-supported nonprofit. To deliver the most ambitious, entertaining, and of-the-moment stories in 2018, we need your help. We need to raise $150,000 by December 31st to accomplish these goals and to keep your favorite shows on the air. Together, we can make this HRN's most exciting, impactful, and delicious year yet. Become a member by donating today. Join us at heritageradionetwork.org/donate, and you'll immediately start enjoying benefits such as VIP invitations to HRN events, where you will mix and mingle with your favorite hosts. Memberships also make a perfect holiday gift for all the foodies in your life. This year, why not give the gift of food radio? You'll hear your generosity in action for the year to come. Help keep our lights on and our mics hot by pledging your support today at heritageradionetwork.org/donate. Thanks for listening.
Hello, and welcome to A Hungry Society. I'm Portia Wilson, and this is a show where we talk about food, dining, food media, and so much more. Today's guests are chefs David and Tonya Thomas of Ida B's Table in Baltimore. David is a career food professional with more than 25 years of experience in the food world and has been featured in Food and Wine, Style Magazine, the Baltimore Sun, Black Enterprise, Cuisine Noir, and more. Tonya was born and raised in Baltimore and has over 2 decades of experience in the restaurant industry. She manages the front of the house at Ida B's Table and is responsible for the baked goods and dessert program at the restaurant. David and Tonya share a common bond for the love of food, family, cultural heritage, food sustainability, and strengthening bonds in their community. David and Tonya, welcome to A Hungry Society.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
I'm so happy to have you here. One, because you're both from Maryland. You are my first Maryland guest ever.
Wow.
Shout out to Maryland.
Yes, Maryland all the way around today. And two, you have this incredible restaurant called Ida B's Table, which we'll get into the name a little bit more, but it's pretty new, and you both stepped away from it to talk to me today, so I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having us. We appreciate the little break.
So let's talk about the inspiration for Ida B's Table. First of all, the name, in case people aren't familiar with who it's referencing.
Okay, I'll take that one. Ida B. Wells, she was, a firebrand. If people who aren't familiar with her, Ida B. Wells was born in the late 1800s, 6 months prior to the Emancipation Proclamation. So she was born a slave, but then obviously with the Emancipation Proclamation, they were all freed somewhat. But she, grew up, I believe, as a teacher, and she saw some businessmen in her community get lynched, and obviously she was outraged, and she decided to write about it. I don't think she ever wanted to be or considered herself as a journalist or as a writer, but I think because of that, it impacted her so badly that she decided to write about it. She kept writing about it. She kept speaking out against injustice and all kinds after that. So that's who she became, and that's how she became known. And it's funny because most people don't know anything about her. The fact that she was one of the founding members of the NAACP escapes most people. But because of that, I think we had to kind of use that name to bring some light to, especially what's going on in this country right now. I think she was the perfect person to kind of be the name behind what we're trying to do.
Right. And where you're located in Baltimore, can you talk a little bit about that, Tonya? I know you're born and raised in that city.
Yes. So, we're located in downtown Baltimore. We're 1 block from City Hall, the mayor's office, around a lot of court buildings. The building that we're in is actually owned by the Real News Network, which is a very progressive radio station out of Canada, but they came to Baltimore 7 years ago, chose that city specifically for, just to help with, shedding light on some of the issues in the city, and they felt like it was the perfect city to come and help report on the happenings there without any corporate sponsorship or anything. So they're nonprofit, totally donor driven. So that means they can report the news as they see fit, as they see it, without anyone directing, how they report the news, which was fitting when it came to the restaurant project, and they were looking for someone to come into the restaurant, and when they had approached David in reference to that, and that's how it all tied in and made sense. His concept as far as the food, and them being a news network and tying everything in together, and what do you want to name it, was Ida B's Table. It kind of made sense to reference who would you want to refer to in the name. We had several single names and everything, but when that came about, I said, okay, that makes sense. I was a little nervous about it, I'll be honest, because you have to live up. This is someone, this is an icon, not just in our race, but as a woman. And we're going to have to make sure we live up to that, and we're working hard every day to make sure we do fulfill that.
Right.
Yeah, it's not easy, but
it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
it is.
Certainly. Yeah, but we have, like she said, we got to do it right to pay homage. So, for me, Ida B. Wells, is someone who we all, try to be. As an activist, just as a person, be willing to speak out against injustice, and how that translates into food for me is being honest about what you're doing. And that's why I've, kind of coined it modern soul food, because I think if Ida B. Wells was still here, she would probably be eating soul food. She was an educated woman who did a lot of traveling. She actually spent some time in Europe and did some lectures there. So I'm quite sure she had an opportunity to get some really great food. And how would we honor that without standing still? Because, traditionally we, African Americans, we still eat the same things. We're still eating mac and cheese and collard greens and fried chicken. But what's the next step? What's the evolution of that food? We can go all the way back to, what we call slave food. The foundings of this country, the food, the true cuisine of this country was built on the backs of slaves. What do you call it? Cajun, Creole, Southern, barbecue. And you get into, the late 60s where the Black Power movement started up. and then we started calling it soul food. And we kind of stopped right there. There was no change or pattern or progression. And when we started thinking about this concept, I wanted us to be able to be proud of that, but keep moving forward at the same time. And I don't think soul food gets the best representation in terms of how it's plated, what it looks like. We all know it tastes great. And it's all considered comfort food. But sometimes it's like a double-edged sword when you call something comfort. It tastes great, but, it's not really fitting for this, this kind of setting. So when I thought about that, I decided to think, okay, in my other restaurant, this is what I was doing, but now I need to take it further. There's a deeper message. The history's got to be a big part of it. But modern soul food for me is reaching back while we're moving forward. So
that actually, you have a quote that I found that you said that in order to know where you're going, you have to know where you came from.
Yeah.
And does that kind of tie into it too, talking about the progression of trying to move food a little bit forward?
Yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, because I don't want to. And I've done a lot of different things in my career, the gastronomy, making foams and all that great stuff. I mean, it looks beautiful on the plate, but I'm about honest food. And I think that's what Ida B. Wells would have kind of stood for, in my opinion. Like I said, that transition, or how do I translate who she was into a plate of food? It's being honest, telling the truth. And I'm not knocking any chef for doing what they do, but I like using local products. I like using organic and all-natural products, non-GMO products. I think that's honesty. I can trace back the animals that I'm serving. I can talk to the farmers that butchered them. That means something to me. I think that's about being honest, not just being transparent, but being honest. And you need to know where your food comes from. So that's what that means to me, too, when I make the statement. Obviously, we need to know what our history is, and that's a big part of what we're trying to do. But being able to trace back those little bits of food that we eat, I think that's meaningful. I mean, to me, it is. And I think our customers, at least most of them, appreciate that. So
I think we see that in food culture right now. There is this movement back towards, away from the foams and the molecular gastronomy of however long ago, even though it wasn't that long ago.
It's still around.
And back to wanting to know where our ingredients are coming from.
Right.
And you both do work with an organization called Days of Taste.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit, Tonya?
Yes. So Days of Taste is a program. It actually originated, Julia Child started it. And then we have that program in Baltimore where we actually go to Baltimore City schools, Baltimore County schools. It's like I'm not saying Baltimore is general for people, but it's separated into counties in Maryland. So I know we're like in 5 different districts, I think, at this point. Usually 3rd and 4th graders, where we go into the school, and it's 3 separate days that we go there. And the first day, they actually learn about like taste. They learn a little about, we talk about where the food comes from. We talk about like a map is shown and, this comes from this area of the country and this. And you always want to have as little mileage from where your food comes from to you. So that's pretty much fitting with the local sustainability. But the first day, they go through this whole thing, tasting and learning about sweet, salty, sour, bitter. The second day, they actually go to a farm. And we have several farms in the Maryland area that they work with. So they get to see whatever they're producing on their farm, get the taste, tour it. And then the third day, we come back, and we try to be there even at the farm trip. But the third day we come back, and usually they make a salad. At that grade level, they can't cook anything.
Right.
So you can't do
You don't want to give them a
anything.
bunch of knives and tell them to get to work.
So they actually we usually do a salad. And most of the time, most of the chefs, and we always make sure whatever was at the farm, we try to incorporate into the salad. It's seasonal. They make their own vinaigrette. And for a lot of the kids nowadays, and see, we've seen it over the past 4 years that we've done this, how kids eat very little vegetables, very little greens. It's kind of disheartening to them. You know, a salad is iceberg lettuce. And when we branch out, we're always there with kale. We try to mix it with mesclun, greens or spring mix or something, just to ease their palate. Because when we give them kale, to them it's just like,
it's foreign.
It is to them.
Wow.
But it just introducing them to other produce as well. I think when we just did it in October, we had watermelon radish. Some of them had never seen watermelon radish before, and them tasting it. We love the program. It's helping educate the kids on where the food comes from. Most of them are used to supermarkets, and they don't know how the food got to the supermarket.
Right,
they feel like it just showed up at the supermarket.
And
That's not how it
shiny
works.
and perfect and stacked up. Yeah.
But just not only that. And then in Baltimore we have a lot of food deserts. So then you have some children that don't have access to the fresh produce. That's evolving in Baltimore. There's so many people that's with urban farms and urban gardens now, and they're really trying to do away with that to try to help with some of the health issues that are going on in the city. And a lot of it's because they don't have access to fresh produce, fresh foods, very limited. There's no grocery stores, in the community. So proud to be a part of the program, always trying to help support it, and we're going to continue to do it as long as we can.
That's wonderful. And Chef David, why is it so important to you to be a part of the program as well?
Teaching children, to get away from, and I'm not going to name those restaurant names, but stop from eating fast food. It's killing people. Obviously you're not going to die immediately if you eat something, but the long-term effects they're too great. And I think, especially children in the inner city, they just don't have the access. And I understand, the parents are working and they don't have time to cook, a really nutritious meal, so to speak. But if they learn, they can see that it really is going to take a lot of time. But we need to change people's habits at the same time. Just Americans in general. We eat far too much meat and less, not enough, green leafy vegetables. And if we can teach these children to balance their diet, I'm not saying only eat lettuce and become a rabbit. I'm just saying that, tamper down how much meat you eat. Stop drinking soda altogether. And just eat a balanced meal. Mm-hmm. And if you show them and you allow them to taste it and they get an understanding that, okay, well, I don't like kale by itself, but if I add a little lemon to it and I add a little salt to it, and I add a little maple to it, that's something I can deal with. Mm-hmm. And I'll give it to them however they can eat it. And that's what we try to do. So for me, and these kids go home and then teach their parents, because some of their parents don't eat the right way either. And most of them, or a lot of them, don't have, the time or the energy to come home and cook, whatever. So they're grabbing whatever fast food is on the way home. And that's just not a good way to survive. And I think, for me, it's important for us to teach kids and adults as well to, we've got to change our eating habits. That keeps us away from the doctor's office. So that's important for me. And as well as, trying to groom some more sustainable chefs for the future. I think we need to get away from big agriculture. I'm talking about as an entire country. And if we start with these kids young, get them to understand how important it is to eat close to the source, I think we'll be able to do it. So that's why I do it.
And you both, when I was researching you both had very formative cooking and not necessarily dining, but cooking experiences, either watching someone or being mentored by someone in a restaurant. Can both of you talk about experiences that shaped you in the dining world or in the food world?
In the restaurant industry? For me, one in particular, when I first started in the business, Kevin Zabanik, who was master chef who worked for a place called White House Caterers in Baltimore County. I really just started getting into cooking, and he smacked my hand and showed me, hey, this is how you do it. I learned a lot from him. Just the introduction of food and what professional cooking looked like. And then I went on, he gave me a recommendation to work somewhere else, and I just kept moving from there. But what really ultimately shaped me, I went to work for Chef Galen Sampson. He owned a restaurant called the Dogwood in Hamden. And he was the first, if I'm not mistaken, farm-to-table restaurant in Baltimore. And working with him and seeing how he cared for what he was doing, and that really took me back to a place that I really hadn't thought about food. And it was really, it made me think about my grandmother and how I used to see her, butchering and slaughtering and going out in the garden and picking and, foraging herself. So those are the things that really shaped my belief and my world in food. So.
And what about you, Tonya?
Well, that's funny. I mean, he's pretty much referencing the same chef. We actually work in the same restaurant. But other than Galen, with me in the restaurant industry, it was actually a gentleman that was known in Baltimore. He had a restaurant called Mardix. I worked with him for only 6 months, and at the time that I worked with him, he was like 84 years old and had been doing it like all his life. In the short time that I worked with him, I had learned so much. He did like what you call low country French cooking.
Yeah, low country French. Yeah.
And it just, the bouillabaisse and how he did his pork chops, and everything, even his bread pudding. And he actually was the one who taught me to make profiteroles. When it came to baking, that was my first pot of choux. And I've been making it ever since because of him. So it's just, they were definitely, Mr. Morris Mardick and Galen Sampson were the ones that influenced me in the restaurant industry.
And did you both met working in a restaurant?
No.
Wait, so you worked in the same restaurant, but you didn't meet there?
No, we met years before that. We've been married for 25 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've been married for a long time.
So we actually met years ago in a whole different, we weren't even in the restaurant industry. He was, but I hadn't really delved in that. We actually met in retail.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was his boss. So
She still
I had to
is.
throw that.
She still is.
Just had to put that in there.
I just had to put that in there.
Awesome. Well, we'll be right back with more Hungry Society after this.
Hearst Ranch is a proud sponsor of the Heritage Radio Network. The Hearst family has been raising cattle on the rich, sustainable native grasslands of California's Central Coast for over 150 years. Piedra Blanca Rancho in San Simeon is the original Hearst Ranch, founded by George Hearst in 1865. George's son was the famous publisher William Randolph Hearst. In addition to being known for building the iconic Hearst Castle, William was, like his father before him, an avid rancher. In his words, "I would rather spend a month at the ranch than any place in the world." Thanks to one of the largest land conservation easements in California history, a joint effort with the California Rangeland Trust, the American Land Conservancy, and the state of California, the working landscape at Hearst Ranch will be preserved forever. Learn more about Hearst Ranch at HearstRanch.com.
All right, so we're back with more Hungry Society and Tonya and David Thomas of Ida B's table in Baltimore. So a little bit of a controversial question here. Is Maryland the South?
Oh boy.
In New York, we are.
That's true.
If you ask anybody, north of Maryland, yes, we're Southern. And if you ask anybody
Right in the
south
South.
of Maryland,
Right, no.
we're Northern.
It's like
You know,
we're a
so-
stepchild.
But I mean,
yeah.
Maryland's the Mason-Dixon line.
We're
It's
right.
that's
so-
true.
Yeah.
It's technically
We're right
south
in the
of the
middle.
Mason-Dixon.
Yep.
I think culturally, like north of DC, maybe not, but definitely once you get south of DC, it feels southern at least.
Yeah, I mean, but keep in mind if you put it in the context of the slave trade, the first slaves that came to this country came through Maryland. So typically, when you think of the slave trade, it is thought about the South. So if you keep it in that context, then certainly Maryland is Southern. And when they were fleeing from the South, they didn't stop in Maryland. They went to Pennsylvania, which is north of Maryland. So there you have it.
Yeah. There it is. So there's been this breakdown between soul food and southern food. Can you both talk a little bit about that? Do you have strong feelings about it being called soul food or southern food?
Yes, I do. Well, here's the thing. I'll try to put it so people understand. If you look at the difference between Cajun and Creole, okay? So Cajun was really designed in terms of kind of a platform for food for the elites in Louisiana. Creole was for those low country, poor people. So that's how Southern and soul food are now viewed. Soul food is for those black poor people. Southern food is for those more affluent white people. And I tell this story, and I guess that's what, frustrates me and drives me at the same time. They come from the same origins.
Right.
Whether you call it Cajun, Creole, Southern, barbecue, soul food, they all come from the same place. They were all created by the same hands. So, yeah, I have very strong feelings about it. I don't knock anybody for attempting to do it. And some people do a really good job at it. But soul food doesn't really just mean collard greens and mac and cheese. Soul food means something that you bring from the past and that heritage that you incorporate into that food. It also comes from a place of pain. We didn't eat offal. We didn't eat pig's feet and oxtail because we wanted to. We ate it because we had to. It was about survival. If anyone were given, the choice between a Delmonico cut
Right.
and, some pig intestines, I'm almost certain 99.9% are going to go for that steak.
Right.
But that slaves didn't have that choice. So we have been learned and we've been trained to do the best with what we have. That's soul food. You make the most incredible tasting food out of the scraps that people throw away. That's soul food. And it's very cliche now, this whole hog and whole animal cooking and, don't waste any part of the animal. They call it, from the to the rooter to the tooter is what we always used to say. But it's, from the snout to the tail cooking.
People have been doing that
That's how we survived.
Right.
We've always eaten pig feet and the snout and the brains. We ate whatever the master threw out of scraps. That's how we survived. We were the foragers, the hunters. We were the ones out there chasing the rabbits and squirrels so that we could survive because we needed a little protein. Now that stuff is, in the trendiest restaurants around the world. But it's how we survived. And so this whole idea about modern soul food, Ida B's Table, why it's important to me is because it's about us reclaiming our heritage, reclaiming what we started. And we should be in the forefront of telling that narrative. So
The language thing is so interesting. I worked at a restaurant where they told us not to say pig's feet at a table. They told us to say trotters.
Trotters.
Yes,
Yeah,
pigs, trotters. And I was like, you mean pig's feet?
Yeah.
I was like, what are trotters? And I was like, oh, they mean feet. They mean pig's feet, but they don't want me to say that at a table.
Yeah.
So the language thing is so important, especially when it comes to soul and Southern
Yeah,
food.
absolutely. Yeah, because it's it's what's more acceptable. I mean, and another reason why it's important because it's not just about not saying pig's feet and saying trotters. It's about denying a part of the history, the suffering that came behind that. A lot of that has to do, we're in a climate nowadays, we want to deny everything. What's fact, what's real, we want to deny that. So if we can alienate those who want to tell the truth about that, then that's what you get. You get a watered down version. And I'm not about to let that happen. I think what we're doing is important work, but it's more so than just food. It's about us telling and reclaiming the narrative. And if we don't do it, we're going to fall into the trap like we have with a lot of our history. We're going to allow somebody else to tell us about us.
To tell the story.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Baltimore a little bit. Can you talk about Baltimore's dining culture, how it is today, since you're now a part of it, or you have been for a while, but Ida B's table is now a part of it.
So I mean, it's evolving. Baltimore still has it's things that they're used to eating. Old Bay.
Yes.
You can't deny the Old Bay.
I love Old Bay. I put Old Bay on everything.
and that's about the crab cakes. But the food is evolving. You have a lot more cultures that's bringing in their cuisine. So I know that it's helping to put Baltimore on the map more now. And we're proud to be a part of that. Just having the restaurant Ida B's table there and what we're trying to do with soul food. It's Baltimore, we have a lot of places there that just sell it, but it's not in a setting as what we've set up with Ida B's table. And I'm happy that the community there has embraced that. When they come in, they're just so happy that they can come in and dine, and then the experience that they're given, the atmosphere, the service, everything that we want to do in presenting soul food in the light that we felt like it should be, that it always should be. It's just like any other cuisine. It should be embraced and appreciated and respected is pretty much what we were shooting for, and I think we're accomplishing that. And being a part of that evolution of Baltimore's, the restaurant scene, the dining scene there. So, but you have that and, trying to think what other
The restaurants?
Yeah, the restaurants.
You have a lot of, not a lot, but there are a few restaurants I think that are going to be the start or are becoming the start of this movement in terms of turning Baltimore into a food city. Baltimore is a working class city, and it's a very small city. So people have been eating the same things for a long time. We're known for crabs in Baltimore. So it's like a rite of passage. If you come to Baltimore, you got to eat a crab cake. And if it's summertime, you got to have steamed crabs. So a lot of the dining in Baltimore revolves around that and has been for a long time. But now you have other influences coming in, and it's slowly changing. And I think, I was talking to, if I should say her name or not, but Tony Tipton Martin happened to be in our restaurant. And she said, Baltimore has been discussed, about this food scene that's coming in Baltimore. So for someone who like that, who travels the country,
Right.
To know that Baltimore is, coming into its own, it says a lot. I think we're not there yet, but I think we're getting there. There's a lot of different places that, we're doing something just a little different, and that's what we need. Obviously, we're not in New York, who has, some of the best chefs in the country who come here, they start here, they stay here, and then some of them travel a little farther south to Baltimore. And then that's when you get a little more recognition, when those notable chefs come and do a pop-up or open up something in Baltimore. And, now we're, beginning of a food revolution in Maryland.
Yeah. And that's very fitting with the name of your restaurant. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's good for us. Excuse me. Modern soul food for me it's more than about food. So I'm hoping that people will embrace the history along with the food. But yeah, I think we're in the right place at the right time for a number of different reasons. And it's just our time to tell the narrative, to reclaim our history and to elevate it. And Jessica B. Harris wouldn't be happy with me saying elevated, but
Yes, she would. She said it doesn't need to be elevated. That's what
elevated.
she said.
Yeah.
It needs to be presented, which is why I
Differently.
said the presentation, the service, the atmosphere.
Presented, not elevated.
Not elevated.
Not elevated. Yeah, and she's absolutely right. And I had a chance to meet her when we were at the book fair in New York a few months ago, and I got a chance to speak to her. And I, very stupidly said, "Hey, I'm going to open up this restaurant and I'm going to elevate soul food." And she looked at me like, "What makes you think soul food needs to be elevated?" So I
You're
shut
like,
up really
"Oh."
quickly and tried to process that. And I said, "You're absolutely right. It doesn't need to be elevated." And when I had time to think about it, she is absolutely right. It doesn't need to be elevated. It's great food. We have got to be proud of what we do. And that's what she said to me, or that's what I took away from it. We've got to be proud of what we do because everybody else loves it.
Right.
Everybody loves fried chicken.
Well, I think the word you used earlier, like progression, is a little more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
It
that's
fits it
absolutely
more.
right. It needs to, everything's got to evolve.
Exactly.
And I think that's what I'm trying to do now is just, expand, what we've always done. And, I'm still using the same ingredients. It's just, now it's, pork belly is, something that's supposed to be really special. But it's the same stuff that we were using years ago. But now it's, this very special, unique item. So,
Right.
that's why I always reference going back and moving forward because we're still doing and using those same things, maybe a slightly different technique and presentation, but I'm still trying to achieve the same flavors. I still want good fried chicken. I
Right.
still want good mac and cheese.
Right.
I still want some good greens. And, I'm still chasing those recipes of my grandmother and my wife. She makes an incredible mac and cheese. So I'm chasing these when I'm tasting and creating. Although I'm trying to move it forward, I'm still reaching back to get it. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's what it's about for me. That you got to do something that has some heart to it. And we're trying our best there. So
I have some questions that I ask every guest. You don't have to name names, but can you talk about one of your worst dining experiences that you've had?
I'll
Why
let
are
you
you
take
pointing
that
at me?
one.
Yes, Tonya, this is you, apparently.
Okay, I know. He's saying,
Just don't name any names.
Or you can if you want
no,
to.
I don't need to name names. This is the hard thing about saying that because I'm really trying to think it's not saying that we didn't have bad experiences, but it's not even a place that I wouldn't even want to discuss. When we do dine out, I work so hard to pick a place that I know he will not be disappointed in because I can't deal, and I don't want to be disappointed in. But most of our worst dining experiences, unfortunately, have been when we let my parents pick.
I didn't say that. Just for the
yeah,
record.
yeah, you can't
I'm
say
sorry.
that.
I'm
She
sorry,
can say
Mom.
that.
I can say that.
You'll be in a lot of
Sorry.
trouble if you say that.
No, sorry, but yeah, when they picked it, because they don't always pick great places, and it's usually just the food is not up to what we're looking for, and the service could be great, but the food is it's just regular. Pedestrian, his favorite word. There you go. Which is why when we do choose, and take my parents out, we always try to expose them. And something like he discussed, they're of an older generation and they're used to what they're used to. Mm-hmm. So they always eat the same things unless we say, try this, and then they try it and then they like it. Mm-hmm. But it's not something they would think of. So, Yeah, the worst dining experience. It's been several places, but it's usually places that they always pick.
Do you have a favorite restaurant at the moment, like when you're not working at your restaurant?
We have several. It depends on what we're.
Yeah, I guess it really depends on what you're in the mood for.
I know if he said we just want something casual, just going out to chill in Baltimore. It's a place called Clavel. I know he's going to say that. It's actually
all I can say is beef tongue taco.
Oh wow!
It's
That
life
sounds really
changing.
good.
that's like one of the
Life
best
changing.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. Clavel. Let's see.
As
Who
far
else?
as
Our boy Stevie and Ekeben.
Ekeben.
They have this tempura broccoli that is out of this world.
Yeah.
Light, this vinegary and shallot sauce. It's delicious.
and the
So
other place, a Black Sauce Kitchen.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's like those are the. I mean, we just
we're simple. We like
we just
good food.
I mean,
It doesn't have to have foie gras and foam and caviar on everything.
it's somebody.
It's just got to be just well done. That's it. Just do it well.
But if we wanted to go someplace and splurge, not splurge, but like travel, and it's actually just going to DC and
DC's got some really good food down there as well. I know you've been down there.
Yeah. So I grew up outside of DC,
Mm-hmm.
and the restaurant scene there, I feel like is similar, where it's just it keeps getting bigger
Bigger
and
and
bigger every single year.
yes,
So yeah.
Yeah, and I try to seek out. We try to seek out restaurants that adhere to our philosophy in terms of local sustainability. It doesn't make sense for me to preach what I do and then go out and eat
And support a restaurant that doesn't do it.
Big agriculture. It just doesn't make sense to me. So there's a couple restaurants in D.C. One in particular that we really love, the Dabney.
I actually have not been to the Dabney yet, and every person I know that has been there is like, you have to
Yeah,
go.
you gotta go.
Yeah.
You gotta go.
have to go. We're like we're dying to go back.
Yeah, I mean we're here till tomorrow, so we have reservations at the Homestead tonight. So I'm very excited about eating there tonight.
You have to let me know how that is.
Certainly will.
So my last question for you, if you could have your last meal in a restaurant, where would it be, and who's invited?
Wow. Does it have to be in a restaurant?
It doesn't have to be. It can
Okay.
be wherever you want.
Well, for me, because I know exactly what I want to do. For me, it would be, maybe out in the middle of a farm, late spring, early summer, about 75 degrees.
You were the first guest to give me a temperature.
Because it can't be too hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just can't be too hot. I want my wife, obviously, my grandmother. I would want probably, let's see. I'd probably want Galen Sampson there. I would want probably Dr. Jessica B. Harris, just because of her conversation. I would also want my guy from who runs is it the Blue up in New York, up in upstate? Dan Barber.
Yeah.
Just because his philosophy about food is kind of what drives me. Yeah, people like that.
What are you eating? What's the menu?
Oh, wow. I mean, all wild stuff, so like pheasant and like muskrat, squirrel.
Muskrat.
Yeah. We used to eat possum.
Yeah.
I mean, they're one and the same. I mean, they're different animals,
In
obviously.
Waldorf,
but
people still eat possum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to get possum for my grand opening and couldn't get it. She says,
No, yeah. That might be for the best that you didn't get some
it's
possum.
probably a good thing that I didn't get
Yeah,
possum.
maybe you don't want to start with possum.
You're probably right. But yeah, stuff like that. Simple, some fresh vegetables, some great wine. That's it, But it's about the food and the conversation and learning something. And then, that would be it for me. I just don't know what other, I don't know who else I could invite. I'm sure you probably have a
And what about you,
list.
Tonya?
I know I'm just sitting up here thinking well, it's funny, and I don't want people to say she just said that just because, but that's not. We actually went to New Orleans once, and we just because of time constraints, we didn't get to go to Dookie Chase's. And I would love to have dinner there. It's funny, I would want my family around me. You always have to have your family around me. My grandparents, my great-grandparents, it's like so much that I wish at the time that they passed that I didn't ask them because I wasn't at an age to get just so much more information. Would love to have Leah Chase there, of course, Edna Lewis. Just think of people that I just been following so much now. And Nikki Giovanni.
That's a good lineup.
My favorite
That's
poet
a good list.
since I was in elementary school.
You wouldn't get to eat anything.
No, I wouldn't. I'd be talking the whole
time.
Definitely have to have all the food that my mom always talked about that my great-grandmother did. She made these open-faced dinner rolls. She used to make her own root beer. It's like I have to have everything that she talks about that I didn't get to experience.
Yeah.
You
Drop
know, because
biscuits.
all of that stuff. You know, and my grandmother's fried chicken. That to this day is still one of the. I mean, my husband makes good fried chicken. I'm not going to this guy was, but my grandmother's like one of the best that she made in that cast iron skillet, and I still remember that. I was like, I have to have that. Yeah, so definitely food from my childhood that inspires me now. You know, even though he does a lot of the savory cooking, and but the bacon comes from what I remember being around my grandmother and my great grandmother. So definitely have to have that.
These are two dinners. These are great. I would love to come to either.
And you're
one.
invited.
Oh, am I invited?
You're invited.
Wow, thank you. Well, thank you both so much for coming, for taking time out from you. I know you're both busy in Baltimore, so I really appreciate it.
We appreciate the opportunity.
And thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time on The Hungry Society.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to hear about exclusive events, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at heritage_radio. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Rate the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join our community by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.
Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butts, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be. And realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next Farm Bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.